Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chatty Cuppa. Now, I know I have a smile on my face, and this smile is because I have a very special guest. I know this guest for a long, long time, and it's because our spiritual paths crossed. And today I'm going to be talking to her about something that she's been going through, and I think many people have suffered with this in some aspect of their life. I know I went through this with my sister-in-law who passed away with cancer. And this was about 8 years ago. And I know I'm talking about it and I can still feel those feelings in me. I think the biggest shock was knowing that she had cancer. And as soon as she heard these words, the word cancer, it feels as if she canceled her time with all of us. So it's a weird one. And today it's not going to be about me feeling sad because I know now she's in a much better place. And we do miss her, my sister-in-law Cookie. And but I'm so glad that I'm going to be chatting to you and also to my very special guest about hope, about ways of actually rising above the fear of cancer. And I would love to welcome Dr. Daksha Trivedi. And I usually call her Daksha Bain. Bain means sister because I always looked at her as a sister, but she told me, please get used to calling me Daksha. And I think I'm going to have a problem with that. Well, Dr. Daksha Trivedi is an academic who trained in epidemiology, and she studied at Cambridge University, and now she's at the University of Hertfordshire with an interest in public health and healthcare research. Now she's recently came through this journey of, I think, giving cancer a kick up the And she's sitting here after writing a beautiful book, now Living the Dream, a tale of a surviving cancer patient. Now, Dakshaben, please tell us a little bit about you and welcome. I feel totally privileged to have you sitting here and chatting with me this evening.
Well, thank you very much, Nirasha, for having me. And I'm delighted to be here. And it really is a privilege to be able to be in this place to share where I'm coming from. So just a little bit about myself. My family and I came to the UK from Nairobi, Kenya. Some 1970, I remember it was a very cold winter. And we settled in Coventry. And now I live in a beautiful hilltop village called Meppershell, which is in central Bedfordshire. And yes, you've introduced me in my professional background. I live here with my husband, and this is where it all started, my journey. Interestingly, my doctoral work was most focused on breast cancer research.
Wow.
It was many years ago, and so during that time, I came across many people who were going through the journey. So, hey, I'm here right now to tell the tale.
So this field of medicine, when it comes to cancer, it's not something new to you in the sense that you were working and you were, working in this field. And you have seen patients upon patients that went through this process and have come out the other side. Some have and some haven't. And so you know the emotions behind both. Now, Daksha Bain, I know we've both been, we both came into the UK from different countries, leaving family behind, starting in a new place. And with those feelings and with that journey, we actually pick up a lot of things along the way. And most of the time, we don't realize how much of emotional baggage we actually end up piling onto our little rucksack at the back of our, that we have on the back of our backs. Now, as you were, let's talk about a lot in your journey of life. What were some of the emotional baggages that you've ended up putting into your bag along the way? And I ask you this question because I want you to help me and help others understand the impact emotional baggage has on our health.
So I think that's a very good question, Nirasha. And I think the best way that I can convey this is to take my current context in my journey that I've had. Because, over the years, I completely agree with you. We work it out, we work it through. But I think when a disaster, and when you get the devastating news that is totally unexpected, the kind of things you're talking about, the burden, the emotional burden, the anxiety and the fears, they kind of creep in. And no matter how much you are on a spiritual journey or an evolving journey. So for me, the last thing that we expected to find out when my mother came to spend Christmas with us in December 2017 was that I had this cancer. Okay, so you talked about emotional burden. This was a huge thing for us because given that we lost my twin brother only 6 months before from a very similar cancer, an advanced stomach cancer. And the emotional journey for me began when I felt that lightning had struck twice. So there's my twin brother, and then 6 months later, there's me. And of course, I was very fearful because the first thing that crosses our mind is, am I going to have the same fate as my brother? Am I going to go through the same pain as my brother, endure the same pain? And so the words, "you have got cancer," started my remarkable life-changing journey. And I think the emotional burden just does not come from the devastating news like that. It also comes from knowing that not only you're dealing with that, but you're also dealing with a heartbroken, grieving mother, leaving me as the only surviving daughter. So, so obviously, you mentioned my book, and so that charts my story about the kind of fears and the anxieties that I went through, and I managed to put pen to paper to see how to kind of address it. And I can talk about that, about some of the strategies.
We definitely will come back to that because that is the most important part. You know, in every Chatty Couple, we talk about mindset changes and we talk about a mind shift in how we achieve, we move from here and we go up to there. But I want to go a little bit further back in your life. I want to actually touch again on that emotional baggage that we collect along the way. Now, if I look at my life, I've collected quite a lot of emotional baggage, and I felt the weight when I came to around my 30s. And then because I didn't deal with it, I've dealt with losing my dad when I was 19. I dealt with losing a baby, my first baby, which was the most painful experience that I've had. And then along the way, you pick up other emotional baggage, like coming to another country, leaving friends and family behind. So when I came to around 35 or 36, I hit rock bottom. So I know the impact that the emotional baggage had on me. And I know if I didn't nip it in the bud then, I would have had a change in my physical, in my physique, in my physical body. Now, looking back at your life, and I know you've lost loved ones, and I know you've had other experiences, sometimes even things such as work, work can be an emotional baggage, a pebble thrown into your bag. So you've worked with other people too that have had emotional baggage. So does this emotional baggage have a big impact on the way our body functions?
Absolutely. There's a huge evidence now. For example, Dr. David Hamilton brings together good evidence on the effect of body, the effect of mind and emotions on your body. It's called "It's the Thought That Counts," how mind over matter works. There is a huge evidence. And now, when we talk about huge evidence, some of these are experiences of people. Now, as a Reiki practitioner as well, I can tell you that the people that we come across, I mean, even in my own life, as you said, you see the body has a great potential to heal, and the mind needs to give it the space to do so. So our thoughts, our emotions are all kind of put us in a vibrational place.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do have, and I don't even want to label negative and positive, but emotional burden and emotional baggage can have a profound effect on your health. For example, it can have an effect on the quality of life. It can have an impact on your immune system. We know that stress, for example, comes from a huge emotional imbalance. My older brother had stress and he had a sudden heart attack and he died 22 years ago. So again, another process that I had to go through. I know you
How
asked
old
to
was
take
he?
my, sorry,
How old was he?
he was 45.
Wow.
He was my older brother. And you know what? It's like, so you know that he was a workaholic. He enjoyed his work, but he was stressed. And I think stress, not just from work, but stress from a whole history of your lifetime where you have unresolved issues and you're not able to escape them, and it can have a profound effect on your health in many ways. We know that stress has an impact on heart disease, on our digestive systems, on our immune systems. People get eczema when they're stressed. So, but in terms of connecting the mind with the body, we now know that our cells talk to each other. There's cell recognition through neuropeptides, neurotransmitters. So there's more and more emerging evidence. At best, we can improve our quality of life and our mind by managing our emotional health and our mental health in totality. So
I was actually reading somewhere that every single cell, I do a lot of command cell therapy with my clients, and I firmly believe that every single cell in your body have its own special brain, where they all connect and talk to each other. And when we have negativity and negative thoughts and so on, it produces and floods the body with cortisol. And cortisol in high doses, it's detrimental, it's toxic in our body. So coming back to, when you heard these words, you have cancer, what was the biggest emotion that ran through your mind?
okay, so my rational scientific mind understood what was being conveyed, but I felt shocked and in utter disbelief. It felt surreal, and that's because that was the last thing I expected to hear. But having said that, remember this: you're not the only one who's wounded here. Your loved ones. Pradeep, my husband, was with me, and there were tears in his eyes, and I think that to me was shocking.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm not having you like this. And obviously he found courage for my words and conveyed that we would beat this. What was actually going through me was what's going to happen now? And for that time, I thought about my elderly mother, and I actually said to the consultant, what am I going to tell an 87-year-old woman who's waiting outside, who's lost her husband and 2 sons? What am I going to say to them? And in a second, all my training vanished when I asked the question, what did I do wrong? So can you imagine the emotions that must have flooded into me to ask those, which now seems like a very stupid question to ask, but this is what your emotions take you into. And another thing that went through me, as you said, when I heard those was, it was surreal. It can't be. They've made a mistake. So there's a denial part of it that comes straight away. And that adds to your anxiety and fear because you think, well, is it or is it not? And also, I had the burden of wanting to give my mother a soft landing. So I could not convey the full force of what was conveyed to me. And that added to, oh dear, where do I go from this? So a whole mixed, most important one is the fear, Do you know what? We talk about diseases, we talk about cancer, we talk about depression, we talk about dementia, we talk about all these things. The most chronic disease of our time is fear. And fear and anxiety, again, I think we talked about this before, why me? And I knew I needed to go from why me to what now. And when, you cannot say that I had fear and I had anxiety and then I parked it there and I moved on. No, it's part of your process. You deal with your fears and anxiety, but you do with it as you go along. You become absolutely open and revealing to yourself and accept the truth. but also learn to accept the uncertainty. So when you give a news like that, you think this is it.
Yeah.
You also assume the worst. But what the truth is, it's uncertainty. And when I thought, okay, I'm accepting the uncertainty, for 3 months, I didn't know what they were going to do. I was given a few months to live without surgery. I didn't know what the impact of the surgery was going to be. So 3 things that really hit was the fears,
Yeah.
accepting the uncertainty, and how do you move from why me to what now?
And when you know that phrase, why me, and moving that from why me to what now, when I was reading it in your book, I actually, it's very powerful. I can actually imagine, when you start to say what now, those words, what now, it becomes empowering, because now you are solution focused. Your mind changes its gear into finding a solution than feeling sorry and going into victim mode.
Yes, yes.
And I think that is many people that go through these stages, especially not just cancer, but go through any form of disease or autoimmune disease or whatever they go through. Even like when somebody loses a loved one, why me? They always ask those questions. But when you change it from why me to what now? What now do I do? And that changes it into solution focus mode. Now, this book that you've written, every word that I've read, I've read through, I felt like I could hear your voice. I felt like I could hear your wisdom speaking right to me. And what actually prompted you to put your heart and soul into such a beautiful rendition or narrative about your journey?
Okay, so throughout my life, Nirasha, I have come across real life stories of people who have shown great courage in the face of adversity.
Mm-hmm.
And they've inspired me greatly. And in writing this book, I just wanted to reach out to all the patients and their families, who may find themselves on a painful journey. It didn't have to be cancer, it could be any painful journey. And also, I have to say, whilst my message, the intention was to convey a message of hope and love and faith and trust, most importantly was self-empowerment. Because they're all elements of self-empowerment that overcomes all fears. And after going through all these trials and tribulations, I was able to put this pen to paper to tell my story of hope, but more as a way of giving back in some way to help others. Can I just pick up on your why me when you mentioned before? I just wanted to add that, we can become exhausted with why me. It's like being in a rocking chair, You feel comfortable in that rocking chair, becoming a victim, but the rocking chair doesn't go anywhere. It just rocks everyone. And I just, when you mentioned, when you expounded on why me, it took me back, to that journey. So I was telling you to keep doing that because I knew it wasn't going anywhere. So this why me is a huge issue in that where you're going to place yourself in the journey.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I think when you do change that and you do switch it around, you go into victim mode, where you become victorious because the mindset changes. Now, I know that you said when you got the message and you had to change your mindset from what now to why, from why me to what now. How did you actually deal? I know many people, they want to know more details, like how do you feel the next day, and how do you deal with it? And how do you deal with it from a week? How do you deal with it waiting for NHS to give you that first appointment of chemo or treatment?
When the equipment breaks down and you're told that your scan is delayed.
Oh my God, and how do you deal? Because in your mind, you think that every single waiting moment
Yes.
means that, oh, my cancer is growing, or
Yes.
it's getting worse. So how do you actually keep your sanity during this process of moving from one, in your timeline of therapy, moving from one to the other?
And it's a very challenging. I had one motto The minute you never get over the shock, but the minute I accepted that I've been given a diagnosis, I decided to focus on what I knew and what I could control.
Yeah.
And to let go of what I could not control. So when I focused on what I could control, the first hurdle was to get over this assuming the worst. Because from my experience, I knew that even though clinicians give you a prognosis like you might have 5 to 30% survival without surgery, as I mentioned in my book, every individual is different. What you get given in your survival predictions is like on a population level. Mm-hmm. So it's all the population data, but each individual has their own journey. So, do you know what? I was mindful for that. And when I learned to accept the uncertainty that there's no point going with what ifs, because I can't do anything about a what if from yesterday. I really have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know when my next scan is. What I needed to do is that if I focus on what I could control, I can take some action. And let's go back to self-empowerment. Self-empowerment is really, in a nutshell, taking responsibility for your own well-being, and also being open and trusting to those who are looking after you. So immediately, when I knew that, oh dear, when I will get the result of the scan, oh, the equipment's broken down, I was walking around with untreated cancer, but I opened my trust to those who were looking after me, who were going to offer me the treatment when they had all the facts together. And I think opening to that trust, and also knowing that we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but to focus on what I could control in the nowness. I developed a roadmap called a nowness plan.
Oh, that's interesting.
So what could I do in the nowness? Okay, I've been told I've got an aggressive cancer. I've been told that without surgery, it's not looking very good. What can I do? I can wait. This is a waiting game. Whilst I'm waiting, what can I control? I think I can control the way I perceive this. I can control my attitude towards it. Mm-hmm. And also, and this is the point when you bring into your fore everything that you know about nourishing yourself. So in the meantime, I knew, and I was also given two things to get myself, make sure I'm healthy, well, fit, because a huge thing is coming towards me. So I decided not just to nourish the body, but to nourish my mind as well. And that is what I could focus in the nowness. Okay. I could say, oh dear, I'm going to die if I don't get a surgery. It's going to be no, because, hey, you know what? I don't know about tomorrow. Everything is uncertain. So I came back to nowness and say, okay, I'm going to nourish my body. I'm going to nourish my mind. I'm going to take this time to really begin to look after myself. I trusted in the process that the medical team, the oncology team were looking after me. I trusted in the process that my dear mother and my husband's good wishes and prayers and all the positive energy was being sent to me. But I connected with my body, every part of me, in a way that I've never connected before. Yeah. I began to listen to my body a bit more. And I decided, okay, I need to boost my immune system, because what's coming means I need my immunity very strong. So as you and I both know, that every movement, every energy movement, exercise, whatever you do, anything that promotes energy inside for your well-being will have a good outcome, a strong immune system, a good quality of life. Balancing. So I nourished my mind through having my space, my meditation. We already know that calming the mind, emotional balance, has a link with our mood hormone, serotonin, which calms us, which puts us in a place where we can receive what we are meant to receive. So I spent long hours being true to myself with my condition right now. And the interesting thing is, I felt really well.
Exactly.
I felt really well because, and this is what you call, in some ways, one would call a saving grace, that here something's been identified, hopefully early. I feel well. So what else can I do? And that's where the notion of self-empowerment, what is that really about?
Yeah.
Being aware of what's going on, recognizing all the good that you can give to your body, yourself at this
Yeah.
moment, and so on.
Now, Daksha Ben, I realized something. I'm going back to my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law had this fear of going to hospitals. My sister-in-law hated, she even hated going for a pap smear. And so when it came to going into hospital, and you know that your body is changing, you know that you're losing weight, you know that your digestion is not the same as it was a year ago. So I think it's so important for people to recognize the body changes. And as soon as they recognize and they become aware of the body changes, they need to go to the hospital. They need to go to the doctors. Now, my sister-in-law, she didn't. By the time she actually went to the doctors and she started this process, I was on holiday in South Africa. And when we went to the hospital, she had her first operation, and that's when they found that there was a tumor in her colon, and it was already, for fourth stage cancer. And she really struggled, and I spent my holiday back in South Africa visiting her twice a day. The doctors would only send her home if she could stand on her feet and walk out of, walk, and her legs just gave up on her. So I was like, the least I could do was nurse her during that time. So I would go to hospital, massage her legs, and I would lift her out of bed, make her take a few steps, and so on. And the reason why I'm saying this is because when we brought her home and she felt the energies of the carers around her, having that same, like, yes, you can do it, yes, you can do it. And she ended up, the day before I left Durban, she sat on the edge of her bed and she stood up on us by herself, and she says, "Ash, look at this. I told her before I leave Durban, she has to walk till the end of that room." And she did it. And I videoed it. And when she did it, she says, "Oh my God, I did it." That, the little goals that she set, she achieved it. And it was a big thing. And the next day when I went to Johannesburg and I gave her a call, these words actually ring in my head because she fell. And she tells me, "I feel like when you left, you took away your positive energy." And it really, I really felt that. But I also realized that when you're going through things like this, your mindset is so important, and the people around you is so important, especially, the carers and so on. Now, how you mentioned something in your book, who takes care of the carers?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about how. I know your beautiful husband is sitting right there next to you. I'm going to ask him to.
It's just moved out, actually.
Oh, really? Oh, but I'm glad he gave you a hug, and I
Yes,
saw
yes,
it. Tell me how
yes.
important it is.
Well, actually, I just want to, what you said just a few minutes ago about the support you gave your sister-in-law. You know what? We also know from science that an emotional release improves your well-being.
Mm-hmm.
So accessing support around you is very important because it will help you release those emotions which kind of limit you, which tight you, they bind you in some ways. So I was able to really talk to my husband very openly. It was difficult with trying to keep some things from my mother, but who cares for carers? Do you know what? 2.5 years into the journey, it was taking a toll on Pradeep, and he had shingles, he became anemic, and because what happens is all the focus is on the patient, and our loved ones are journeying with us. And I know hindsight is a wonderful thing, but when we look back and we look at the information that's available from Macmillan and from many services about how our loved ones or our carers need to look after themselves. And I think that is a big challenge. But not only does the patient need the access and support, but our loved ones do. And we, like I said, we managed it when we recognized it. I would say to the listeners now, or the viewers, that to recognize this far early on, that your carers will have stressful moments, and to be mindful that you're looking after each other in a collective way, because there are organizations like Carers in Hertfordshire, Carers in Bedfordshire, who are there to support you. But coming back to also your point about the positive, that how your sister-in-law felt when she felt that she became suddenly depleted of the positive energy. But this is what it's about. It's about self-empowerment. Is about you do accessing support and sharing your story and learning to talk about cancer is part of self-empowerment. It means that you are opening yourself to all the avenues that might be there. You don't know which one you're going to home into. So, I became open to the dietitian, to the exercise referral, to my own spiritual path, to my family's well-being, to, there's a chapter in my book called Take a Deep Breath. I actually managed to go through conscious breathing and bringing myself in alignment, in a state of peace, so that again I could function in the nowness. One thing is that during the 3 months of my uncertainty, I continued to work in between all my scans, because everybody wants to be normal. And of course it's a life-changing experience, but it does not have to be the worst, and as we know, I just feel that the whole trusting in the process is just about overcoming your fears. Mark Twain tells us that courage does not come from the absence of fear, but it comes from the mastery of fear. And being in the medical research field, I always find to what Hippocrates always said, that the natural forces within ourselves can be our healers of diseases as well. So I think you embrace. So what I did in response to your question is, I embraced my uncertainty. I embraced my strengths and my weaknesses. In other words, I was true to myself. I faced them in the nowness. I'm not going to think about yesterday, and I'm not going to think about tomorrow. But of course, tomorrow morning you've got a scan. What are you going to think today? So you're just going to think, just to allow yourself to be in a well-being state, so that you're going to receive your tests. And then you're letting go of what you can't control. But always, you said you're through this process, you're cultivating a new mindset.
But how do you, at the same time, when you are empowering yourself, how do you actually translate that into the carers around you? How do you actually be strong with them and say, you know what, I don't need tears. I don't need pity. I don't need sympathy. What I need is to be surrounded with positive energy and positive thoughts and positive feelings.
I think you did what I did, was I just dipped it on the head. I think the tears and the worry and the fears were all there in the beginning, in the first 3 months, when there was no treatment plan. But you know what? When you decide that you're going to do this together, you really become partners in crime. You're partners in the journey, and you are then feeding what the patient wants, what the carers want. So one thing common to every cancer patient and their family is to get through this, is to beat it's not about beating the cancer, it's about beating your negative mindset. You're beating a fearful outcome. Why invite something when it hasn't come yet? So I was able to, and again, I have a mother. I mean, I believe that I have faith. My mother's got faith, but my mother's had implicit trust, and she would have no notion of any negative talk. In fact, she went to the other extreme. Do you know what? You don't have cancer. She did.
Sometimes you have to fake it to make it.
The thing is, but in her case, Nirasha, because of what she's gone through, her denial became her coping mechanism. And any talk about negativity was just not, but what we were true to ourselves. If a fearful feeling came, we shared it openly. That's what I mean. We embraced our feelings. So, for example, New Year's Day, we're singing Auld Lang Syne. And just 3 days before New Year's Day, I've been given this diagnosis. And we're saying Happy New Year to each other. And you know what we add to that? New beginnings are coming. Different beginnings are coming. And we actually tell each other, it's not how long you live, it's how you live. So whether you live 1 year, 1 day, 3 months, 3 years, 15 years, it's not about that. Hence, the title of my book is Surviving Cancer. We are surviving every day. Today in COVID, we are surviving COVID every day. And so a cancer patient is surviving that cancer every day.
And once they do that, they thrive.
Sorry?
And once they do that, they thrive.
And this is it, yes. And so you're asking how, yes, so I embraced my family. I will be very honest though, I could not talk to my extended family about this because quite naturally people would assume the word.
Absolutely.
But my family, I mean, like I said, we've lost so many people. There's just my mother and my husband is my immediate family. And we just formed this circle really to say, whatever we feel, we are open, because the more emotions you release, the more, the better you feel. And we had always, you mentioned goalposts. So my first goal was get fit for surgery, then they'll do it. They told me if I'm not fit, they're not going to do a 9-hour surgery and remove my food pipe and my stomach there. So we focused on getting fit. We nourished my body with those beautiful green smoothies and all the things that I always believe I've had a healthy diet, but you become more focused on your immune system. You take those anti-inflammatory foods, but most importantly, we nourished each other's minds and hearts through embracing everything.
Now, you had a very special friend. And this special friend, I was doing some research a few years ago, and they actually now are going to be using, your special friend, your dog, and what is his name?
As this Badger, and he's a gift to me when I needed him the most, from Paul and Sharon, who are just living the road. Badger belongs to Paul and Sharon, but he belongs to me now because he's forever wanting to see me. Yes, it's a very powerful effect. Yes.
I was reading, and because I work a lot with cancer patients also, and I've heard some of their stories too. I was reading how animals, especially dogs, can sense when their loved ones' bodies they can sense cancer, and they can sense illnesses. And I find that absolutely fascinating that a dog or an animal, our pet that's living outside our body, can sense it. But we that have our body, we're living in this body, and we sometimes are very oblivious to it. And it is, and I think one of the reasons, I was explaining this to one of my clients the other day, and I said the reason why we don't understand and we don't know what's happening inside us, because we don't find still moments to actually go within us. I've written this book called Surfing the Smiling Freedom, the blueprint to surfing the internet. And I think we don't often surf the internet to know exactly how we're feeling, to know what our bodies feel are changing. I had a client that had a melanoma, in between her bum cheeks. And she never knew who checks there. We don't ever look at our bottom. And this poor lady, she was such a beautiful human being, and she left 2 little kids. She just found this out after giving birth to 2 little kids, to twins. And unfortunately, she's no more here, and our memories go out, go with her. But we don't look at our bodies enough. We don't feel our bodies enough, and we don't appreciate this machine that we have. It needs to be oiled, it needs to be loved, it needs to be given TLC, it needs to be loved especially. So what would be your advice for people to start to become more aware of their bodies and what's happening inside?
Don't take your bodies for granted. Don't take anything for granted. So I began to connect with my body in a completely different way. than I did before. I was mindful of everything that was, when things go into our body, it's not just the food.
Mm-hmm.
So not only was I mindful about the kind of food that was going in me, but the kind of things I heard, the senses, the thoughts. And I immediately put myself in a place where I would give myself my quiet moments of self-healings, introspection. Most importantly, here is an example. Before my cancer, I would walk up and down this village. I mean, I love walking. I used to run walking holidays. But after my cancer, I actually began to experience the healing moments I had by the trees. The dogs that I used to be scared of were now sniffing around me. I was listening to, I would often just sit quietly in my space when I'm walking. That's my quiet space, I have to say. And connecting with your body is not difficult because, you know, when we have a pain, even in our stomach, we think, oh, I've got a pain. And unfortunately, as you said, that's the only time you want to find out what's happening in the stomach. No, so I began to connect myself with every cell, you know, being kind to, I mean, consciously, I would even talk to myself and say, I'm allowing myself to become fine and normal and to withstand whatever's coming. I have to say that people with faith or no faith, there is something inside that we draw upon, which is our inner strength and inner belief. And if we are ready to draw upon our inner strength, we can then do connect with all our cells and our organs. When we are doing, for example, Reiki practice, as a Reiki practitioner, I can say very clearly that the energy healing is at every level. It's at the cellular level, it's at the organ level, it's at the neurons. I mean, sadly, many of us, we kind of divorce ourselves from the neurons and the organs and the cells. And as you say, and when you trust in the process of reconnecting with every part of you, you do become whole again. You
Yeah.
get this feeling of wholesomeness and whole. So I mean, yeah, having your space, having your, whether you call it meditation, you call it quiet absorbing time. I've spent my time in my space in many different ways, walking, meditating in nature, healing art. I started
Oh,
watercolors,
wow.
and that was very absorbing for me. But it made me want to look inside and think inside in every way. Even when I eat anything, especially after surgery, eating and drinking has been challenging. I just sort of say, okay, take it slowly. I need to look after my health. But Badger, can I mention an example? I was going to have a PET scan in March 2018. It was at 8 o'clock in the morning. I opened the door and I saw Paul walking Badger and Badger pulling Paul towards our house, towards me. And in the end, Paul had to resign and let Badger take the lead. And Badger came to my door, and I just, it's almost like, why? He doesn't normally do that unless I have biscuits for him. I didn't have any biscuits for him. So I just cuddled him and I whispered in his ear. I said, Badger, I'm having a PET scan this morning, you know? And it was just beautiful moment.
And
Beautiful, very
he knew
beautiful.
it, and he already sensed it, and he must have made you smile.
Yeah, it did. And remember, thoughts, I mean, thoughts are energy. We know that scientifically now. You know, it's a bit like when we go to some place, we don't feel quite comfortable. Then we go to another place and we get completely comfortable. It's to do with our
Absolutely.
vibrational energy space. So I think make your space. I would tell the listeners today, make your space yours. You know, every part of you is important. Every one of us has a purpose. And as we know that the purpose of life is to live a life of purpose. And I held on to
Uh, y- yes, living this life of purpose and finding your space of calm, being the calm in the storm and controlling what you can and let going of all the things you can't. It's very potent, and it is something that we have to hold on to, that faith. Now, I'm going to very quickly, I'm looking at the time, and time goes so quickly. I'll give you another example. I work with quite a few cancer patients that suffered with throat cancer or mouth cancer. And after they ended up having their radiotherapy or whatever therapy they were given, it damaged their salivary glands.
mm,
And I had this client that come to me, and he believed he was quite a rich individual, very successful, gorgeous wife, wonderful kids, like everything had a tick, because that's the type of successful life he led. And he couldn't believe, he thought he was invincible. He thought that this horrible word and illness will never touch him. And when he did, it shattered him. So when he came to me, he went for all of his treatments and so on. And the after treatment, although his cancer was in remission, his body was taking a long time to heal. And I know and I appreciate the way the doctors work and their help, and you're a doctor too. But I know sometimes the language doctors use, and I know
yes,
they
yes,
have to give the patient the full disclosure and so on. But sometimes words stick in your mind, and words can be very detrimental in your healing. Now, the doctors told him, you know what, your salivary glands could take months or even over a year to heal. So he thought about it and he says, oh my God, how am I not going to taste food for over a year? How am I going to survive with this metallic taste in my mouth? How am I going to survive not being able to swallow
mm,
my saliva and not being able to speak properly, because our saliva has so many different uses. And when he came here under the first session of hypnosis, I described him eating his favorite
mm,
steak, and his salivary glands produced saliva. When he came out of hypnosis, he was shocked. He says, oh my God, I actually swallowed saliva after months. And I cannot believe it. So I made him this recording where he had to listen to it every day.
yes,
And
yes,
his mind, we commanded his cells in his mouth, his salivary glands, to go
yes,
back to its original coding, because
yes.
he was born with it working well, and he never had that problem again.
Yes, and I think, Nirasha, there's a huge amount of literature on how you communicate and the words
Yeah.
you use. And something that I'm a telephone buddy support volunteer for Macmillan. So when I speak to cancer patients on the phone, it could be something simple like, am I in remission or am I cancer free?
Cancer free.
That's it. You see, so those, because you brought up the subject about how powerful words are, and when I'm sitting at a follow-up, and you mentioned about your hypnotherapy, but again, creative visualization, like I'm sitting in my follow-up and I'm actually just telling myself I'm healthy, I'm happy, everything is as it should be. But the most important thing is we all know that nothing lasts forever. And I kept telling myself, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. There will be a better day. There'll be good days. There'll be better days. There may not be not so good days. But you know what? I've got enough inside me to be kind to myself. In fact, and you know what? When people are told they've got cancer, they become angry and
Mm.
resentful. And unfortunately, that's what happened to my twin brother. He was very angry about what was happening to him. And I think that puts you in a vicious of emotional baggage, as you said, and your ill health. And the only way to tame that anger is, do you know what? Nothing lasts forever. Everything's a passing cloud. It's a huge passing cloud, but it's going to be an opportunity for you to become stronger in some ways. And whilst you're going through, I can tell you one part of self empowerment is when you reach out to somebody else, you do feel that you've got a lasting trust in the process.
Yeah. You are so right, because when you go through these various stages and you remove the anger, you remove the resentment, you remove that revengeful, you actually have this fight with the cancer. You want to take revenge on it, on this monster. And my brother went through that after he lost his wife. And because of grieving, the grieving actually elongated his heart. The grieving actually caused an enlarged heart. And unfortunately, 7 years later, I lost my brother last year. And it hurts like hell. But that is what emotions
Do.
does. It does these things to the body. And the reality is we have to be aware of our emotions, and we
Yes.
have to be able to. I always tell my clients, you look at your emotions as visitors. They come in and they leave. They're not going to be there for long. So just let it pass by.
Yeah, but also there's something that you can vocalize. For example, what I said, do you know what? Yes, of course I'm afraid, but I don't want to be afraid. So can you all help me not be afraid?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
You know, and it's like when you said you become aware that you're afraid, become aware that you're going to be the most difficult person in the world for the next few months. Be aware
Yeah.
and acknowledging it all, because once you acknowledge, it almost opens you to the next level.
You know what? It's, just sitting here and chatting to you, I'm grateful. And I know gratitude is a huge thing for every human being, not just because you go through cancer or you go through some calamity in your life, but I think gratitude also helps you every day, whether you're a child, whether you're an adult, whether you're a young adult or a teenager. I think every day showing some form of gratitude just makes your life purposeful. It enriches your life. It enriches the person you are. Now, Dakshaben, there's one special thing in your book that I simply fell in love with. And I want you to very kindly read it for us. Your poem that you wrote to your mom. Um, you know what? If it makes me in a bowl of tears, I would. Please forgive me because I did that when I read it. It was very touching and very healing. Now, is
I am.
that is
I'm
that?
looking at what page it is on.
It's okay. Take your time. And is that your? Where is Pradeepa? He needs to come in and show us his face.
So he's getting it. Yeah. So yes, but I think you asked me also in the beginning about whilst he's looking for it actually. You asked me in the beginning about the writing the book, and I think what's really happened is that it's opened up so many cancer voices, celebrities. So by the way, it's on page 104.
Yes.
Is it okay if I read it? Because I can say it without the book, but I think it flows better when I read
No,
it.
you read it with the book, whatever, I
In
found
the
it very
in
touching.
the vibrational energy space, I feel my mother's presence, and as I read this, my heartfelt gratitude to life, to God, to my mother and my husband, whom the divine sent for me, and to life and to today, and for the moment of reconnecting with you, Mirasha, because that's what the process is about.
And Dakshaben, I also want to just add in there that when I was reading it, I also thought of my mom, because my mom had to be a carer for her daughter-in-law and then my brother. So it takes a lot from a parent, from a mom. So I'm very grateful to your mom for giving you that love and that
Yes.
unconditional support, and even my mom too. So
So to all the mums,
to all the moms.
for their love. So the title of the poem is We Share the Same Heartbeat. She came to conquer my fears and ease my suffering, her presence washing away my tears, though her own heart aching. Yes, we share the same heartbeat. Her faith unwavering, her patience unending, holding the power to make everything work out. Every moment coaxing and calming, never complaining of her burnout. Yes, we share the same heartbeat. She became my heaven on earth. Through her life burdened with pain, she gave me a new birth. My journey was not in vain. Yes, we share the same heartbeat. Her selfless love and giving sprung hope in my heart, making my life worth living, never to be apart. Yes, we share the same heartbeat. How can I thank you, Mother, my angel of hopes and dreams? I know there is none other than your love pouring in a stream. Yes, we share the same heartbeat.
I told you you're doing this again to me. Yeah. Uh, mm. That is absolutely beautiful. You know what? We do share those heartbeats, and we are so blessed to have our gods on earth taking care of us, and they always stand with us. And you've experienced it, and I'm so grateful that we are sitting here today chatting.
Thank you for inviting me, Nirasha.
No, and you know what? I feel blessed and I'm full of gratitude, and I know that you are going to do some amazing work. You are doing some amazing work, and all, you know, everybody that's going to watch this, please, you can get hold of Daksha Bain, and you can call her Daksha Bain too. It just means sister. You can get hold of Daksha Bain on all her social media platforms. I will put in all the links. And the whole idea of the Chatty Kappa is to rewire and inspire and spark that inner fire within you. And I think your story has definitely done that.
Thank you.
And it will
Can
continue.
I just add that I'm a cancer advocate on the Patient Forum of Cancer Services now, and that my website, www.survivingcancer.co.uk, does give a platform for people to share in any way they would like. But most importantly, go and access whatever support you need, because now everything is holistic needs for every patient. And yeah, I'd love to hear from all the listeners on the website, because I think it has its own cascading effect.
Absolutely. And
thank you for organizing this and all the wonderful work you're doing, Nirasha.
no, thank you so much for always being a cheerleader in my life, and I appreciate that, and I always looked up to you. In fact, your book, the book that you recommended after my sister-in-law passed away, Law of the Spirit World, made a huge difference in the way I've seen and I feel towards losing a loved one. But coming back to I just want to say thank you. Your book is very heartfelt. It's soul searching, and I know it's going to help both carers and even cancers, people that are going through this journey. But it's not just about surviving cancer, it's about thriving and kicking cancer in the butt, you know. It's all about that, and you've done that, and you're so much stronger. And I want to just finish up by saying that we are going to, I would love to do lots of work with you and help other people, which we will be doing. We will be collaborating. And anybody, if you have any thoughts, any feelings, any emotions, you've got Daksha Trivedi, Dr. Daksha Trivedi, and you have myself, and we can make the journey a lot less painful and a lot less and a lot more purposeful. And before I say goodbye, I still want to see the other half.
Ready? Well, he sustained me in all my
you know what? Thank you so much for taking care of Daksha Bain, and you know, and the love I can feel it through this.
Just one thing I wanted to share with you.
Yes, please do.
The day you deliver your loved one for surgery, yeah, you go to the car park and you take her 3 flights of stairs, and then they take her into the surgical operating theatre. You come outside and you say, what have I done? I've just delivered somebody who could walk and talk. Are they going to come back?
Yeah, I can imagine your fear. I can imagine. But hey ho, give that woman a big hug for me again.
I hope you're not recording this if you're new to you.
I am. You know what? This is very... So guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you again. And until the next time, lots of love from me to you. Lots and lots of love.
And can I just send all my good wishes to all your listeners and viewers? And,
thank you.
Trust in the process.
Thank you so much. Until next time, lots of love. Keep smiling from Nirasha.